3 weeks ago, we made a video talking about obscure coasters that are around the planet. That has since become the highest grossing video on our channel, and a lot of you guys wanted to see more videos in a similar style, so here we are, back again with part 2. You don't need to check out part 1 because this video is objectively better, but please check out part 1 after you finish watching this video. A lot of you were flexing your enthusiasm knowledge and saying you knew all the coasters in the last video, so here's another crack at trying to introduce a new coaster to you, and even if I don't, it's entertaining to hear about random coasters, right? With that out of the way, we have 10 amazing coasters to cover, so let's jump straight into the video. Starting off our video, we have Eurostar at a Napa Park jungle, and boy oh boy is this an interesting coaster. At first glance, you would say this is definitely a B&M coaster. We have not heard of a B&M coaster that's remotely resemblant of anything like this one, and that's because this is not a B&M coaster. It's actually manufactured by Intamin. I know, right? Mind-blowing. If you don't know the story of B&M, this track was made by Bolliger and Mabillard. The people, not the company. This is when they both worked for Giovanola and were a subcontractor for Intamin, mainly for the purpose of fabricating track. I think the only other Intamin to use this specific track design was Z-Force, but you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. It's such a bizarre sight to see heavy B&M track with small support trusses. It's really odd. This coaster did travel through Germany for 13 years until it ended up finding a more permanent home in Russia. Some fun facts are this ride used 85 trailers to transport the parts and was able to put together in 14 days. Like I said, it toured through Germany and made over 60 stops, so it definitely served its purpose. As for ride experience, RCDB has the max G-force as 5.2, which is absolutely insane, and I can't help but think this is some crazy intense ride. Next up is an actual B&M coaster, Diving Machine G5. Would you believe me if I told you that the incredibly unique Oblivion and Alton Towers had a clone? Well, those of you who are familiar with Diving Machine G5 would know. It is kind of odd that a coaster dug out 115 feet into the ground somehow gets cloned, but it kind of works well in this setting. Diving Machine G5 is built right on a cliff in the beautiful green setting of Taiwan, so it really works wonders there. I do have to say, Oblivion is built on the ride experience of diving into a dark hole, and removing that just makes it one of the most standard dive coasters ever. Back in the day when I talked about roller coasters I haven't ridden, trust me, I totally don't do that anymore. This was the coaster that I placed last on my B&M dive coaster list, and I still stand by that decision. You're taking one of the most quirky dive coasters, stripping it of everything that makes it unique, until you have the most bare bones coaster ever. It's still a great ride that pulls 5Gs in the pullout, but it's not comparable to a lot of its other counterparts. Also, the track color, it's so bad that it's comedically good. Next up, we have an interesting coaster in Saudi Arabia, Surfrider. Now on the surface, this is just an Intamin Surfrider. How interesting could it be? Well, here's the reason it's so unique. It's the biggest Intamin Surfrider out there. There are 3 variations of Intamin Surfriders, the 20 meter, the 40 meter, and the Disney RC Racer ones. This is the only 40 meter one in the entire world, and it stands at 40 meters tall, or 131 feet. It's twice as big as the typical ones like Timmy's Half-Pipe Havoc. It's also all the way in Saudi Arabia, so it has that going for it. Another mass clone model that has a very unique addition is the Mack Power Splash. When we think of power splashes, the first that comes to mind is Aquaman Power Wave. Most people probably know Pulsar, and some people will know Giant Splash at Lotte World Busan. However, very few people know about Blue Power. Besides just having a sick name, this isn't an average Mack Power Splash, it's just literally in the middle of nowhere, so you probably haven't heard of it, hence why it's in this video. Next up is a Gerstlauer in Africa, and that is Serpent at Sindibad. This is a park in Morocco and is home to a single coaster, being this work of art. This is a clone of a popular Gerstlauer model. Untamed at Canopie Lake Park is probably the most famous example. Some of you UK enthusiasts might be familiar with Rage at Adventure Island, and there's also Falcon and Predator, but those are a little more obscure. Anyways, this is a rare coaster because it's one of the few extreme coasters in Africa and the only extreme coaster in Morocco, so it's pretty out of the way to get to. This ride looks to have a solid ride experience. After all, it's a Gerstlauer clone, but it also looks to have some good theming. Up next is probably the most remote coaster in the entire world, and that is Creature Coaster at Fantastic Park in Guam. Guam is a US territory in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a population of 170,000 people. That is legit how many people visit Disneyland in less than a week's time. The next closest coaster is 1,300 miles away, and it is all ocean between it. The only other coaster that has a chance at being more remote might be the Alaska State Fair, but that's not surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. Guam is. Anyways, if you wanted to travel here, there are flights offered from United. It's called the Island Hopper, and it's on like every aviation enthusiast bucket list. You take off from Honolulu and you have to make 5 stops before you hit Guam, adding up to 16 hours sitting on a plane. There's 3 flights a week, a mechanic has to be on the plane with extra parts, there's 4 pilots present at all times, it's a whole thing. All what I'm saying is it's really hard to travel here. You can do the research on your own. The coaster itself is pretty meh. It's an indoors Amperla powered coaster with some cheap theming, but the novelty of being in Guam is enough to make it obscure. Going back to Africa, we have Gwazi. Now this is not the Gwazi, it's not Iron Gwazi, it's the Gwazi that you get from your plug in a dark alleyway at 3 AM. That was not racist, I swear. Anyways, this is a Schwarzkopf looping star in the middle of Africa. It is pretty rare to find any extreme coaster in this continent outside of Gold Reef City, so that is a feat in of itself. This is the only coaster in Botswana as well, and is a clone of Silver Bullet at Frontier City. It's definitely a solid ride. You would know if you have been on any Schwarzkopf looping stars before. I haven't, and according to some of you guys on Reddit, I can't say it's forceful, but it hikey is. Before we get into the next segment, here's a quick reminder to join the Discord, link in the description. I love talking to all you guys there, and we do daily questions and trivia. It's a lot of fun, so I look forward to seeing you all there. Link in the description. Next up is another Gerstlauer, and that is Abyss at Adventure World. This is a very remote park, and in case you are wondering, I think it is more remote than Guam in terms of mileage to the next theme park. However, it is in a city. Adventure World is in Perth, which is a major city in Eastern Australia. It's just a singular plane flight away from a lot of airports, so it's nothing like Guam in that regard. However, it is a bit of a ways to the next nearest theme park. As in the coaster layout, it's custom, but it's very similar to Saw and what it has to offer. It also has a very dark undertone with some cool theming, so that is a massive plus, but overall, an interesting Gerstlauer that's a little out of the way to get to. The next coaster we are going to talk about is a coaster that I have actually ridden, and you might be wondering, how does this dude with 14 credits that makes up what he is saying in all his videos has something on his list that is an obscure coaster that maybe even I haven't heard about? Well, first of all, I will tell you to suck it. This is my only international extreme coaster, and it's located in Canada at a park called Canobie Park. Yes, I am talking about Vortex. This is an aero coaster that's just outside of Calgary, and if you aren't a coaster enthusiast, you have no reason to be in Calgary. I was there to visit Banff, and you know, I of course had to stop by to pick up a few kitty credits in the aero coaster. All in all, it's not a bad ride, it just doesn't do much. It's relatively smooth for an aero, but it's still an aero coaster. This is my one and only prized possession until I go on a big trip this summer, which I will announce later. So yeah, I like to tell myself that it is obscure. The last coaster we're going to talk about in this video is Ultra Twister at Rizutsu Resort. If you couldn't have guessed already, this is a Togo Ultra Twister. Already, you have yourself an obscure coaster. There's only 3 operating out of the handful that were built, and all of them are in Japan. There's one that got relocated through a bunch of Six Flags parks and one in Kuwait, but the rest and all the remaining operating ones are all in Japan. Now the cool thing about this specific Ultra Twister, which makes it different from all the others, is its unique layout. This specific coaster has a dive loop, which looks really cool. It still is your typical out and back Ultra Twister layout, but instead of the funky tilt track, you have a dive loop turnaround. I have no idea how this rides, but I think it's a step up from its counterparts. I still don't see the appeal of the Ultra Twister model, but it made its rounds for a short amount of time. So those are our 10 obscure coasters. Hopefully I introduced you to at least one new coaster this time around. Let me know in the comment section if I did. This is one of my favorite videos to make. Yes, even better than the last one. So let me know if you want more of this in the comments because I can make videos like this for days and days and days. And that's all for today's video, guys. As always, make sure to like and subscribe from the Discord link in the description. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.